But we're talking about the most brilliant mind this world has ever seen.
Welcome back into the Brian and Brenden Talking About Beaver Football podcast. This is the second podcast of the week. We're starting it a little bit early. We're going to talk a little bit about the quarterback development that has taken place at Oregon State the last couple of days with Daryl Garrettson, it being announced that he was done for the year, and Connor Blount now being done for the end of the year.
Well, we don't know foreseeable future for Blount. I heard we're still not quite sure on Blount.
Yeah, he's still out for the game. Yeah. But
we'll see how it goes.
Either way, it looks like it's Marcus McMarion's team for the next couple of weeks based on what Anderson said this week. Before we get into that topic, let's talk quickly about the Utah game that happened on Saturday, since we haven't talked about that yet. And I think that's something that we should discuss.
Yeah, I mean, weather played a big factor, as we both thought, Brian. We both thought that the weather would have a big impact on the game. I thought it did. I thought Oregon State handled it all right, but Utah handled it much better. They had a better run game consistently. I think that if Oregon State had Ryan Nall for this whole game, they may have won this game. I think that if, we'll get into this later, but I think if Marcus McMarion had started the game, Oregon State might have won the game. It was clear and evident early that Daryl Garrettson couldn't really throw in these conditions, and it's tough to say, but I don't think. I think the Beaver, people call me crazy, but I said today in my practice report, Brian, I think the Beavers might have the best thrower on the team right now in at quarterback. Now.
Yeah, no, talking more about that Utah game. Yeah, I would say that the weather's played a little bit of an element. Both teams I feel like they're both made in the same image. They're both they want to run the ball. Utah's a little bit better at it right now. But as bad as, Daryl Garrettson was, what he started like 1 for 16.
Yeah, he was bad.
Yeah, one yard in the first half.
Yeah, 1 for 16, that one completion was 1 yard. Yeah. So really bad. It was a negative 45 quarterback rating at one point.
Yeah, so not great, but Utah's quarterback didn't do much better.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't need to, though.
Yeah. He barely did. I don't know.
I feel like Oregon State threw the ball a bit more and forced the throw. I think Utah just threw when they had to, but with how well Joe Williams played. But Joe Williams clearly outperformed Artavis Pierce, so in that regard, if Artavis Pierce played that well, probably Oregon State would have been less pressure, but Utah still, they didn't need to, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah, they got Joe Williams. Is that who we're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, off of retirement, comes in and has a heck of a game.
Yep.
Finished with 179 yards and touchdowns. No shine of rust there.
No.
Laid out. I remember one play where he chucked Devin Chappelle pretty hard.
Yeah, he looked good.
Yeah, but I don't know. Utah, they're still a 6-win team. They're a top 25 team. So that, even after the game, there was definitely some times where Oregon State. There's definitely something that Oregon State needs to improve on, but I felt like this is a very evenly matched team. These are two very evenly matched teams.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think it shows Oregon State's not going to get blown out in many games like last year. I think the only game they're going to get really, I could be wrong, but left on the schedule, I think the only 2 games are going to get blown out. And then in this year were Colorado, who really took it to them. I don't think the Beavers were expecting Colorado to be that on fire. And I think the Huskies this weekend. But other than that, I don't think Oregon State's going to get blown out of games like they did last year when they lost 41-0. I just think even though the defense is maybe thinner, I think than last year, I think they're better suited. I do. I think they can handle. I think the defense can handle their own. Brian, you know how impressive it was to the defense get that back-to-back 3rd and 1 and then 4th and 1 stop against Utah to give them a chance in the game. Oregon State would have just absolutely floundered in that position last year. Yeah, no, that just shows big growth in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of the defense I thought played really well throughout the game.
Bend don't break, and they did. Honestly. Bright Aguebu after the game was 19 points isn't going to do it for you in the Pac-12. Well, actually, you know what? On most days it will.
Yeah.
If you hold an opponent in the Pac-12 to 19 points, you're going to give yourself a chance to win every game, period.
Yeah, and last year, Oregon State's offense only averaged like 19 points a game. So that was almost a good enough performance to have last year's offense win. And
this year, I think they're averaging like 20. I want to say after this 14, I want to say it's like 25 now. I think going into the game, it was like 27.8 after the Cal outburst. But that'll still give you a chance to win if you hold your opponent to less than 3 scores.
Yep, that very, very true. The defense played above what I kind of expected.
Me as well, absolutely.
They met the challenge physically that Utah presents, because Utah's going to be a team they're going to try and bully you, and Oregon State didn't allow that to happen. But where I think the team really, really failed, special teams.
Oh, absolutely, not even a question.
Let's see, you have that early punt that sails over Nick Prepsky's head. Prepsky had a couple poor punts. Special teams has been one of you'd say the most consistent unit, this entire year, and they just came up way short in there. 2 missed field goals by Owens, bad snaps on both of those. So it was a mess on special teams.
Absolutely.
And like 8 points were left on the board right there. So there's a difference between a win and a loss. Even those two field goals, even though one was like a 50-some yarder.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't miss that chip shot one. The weather wasn't that bad at that moment. You can't miss that field goal.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch that play because I'd like to see the snap, because like with the snap to hold to kick, it's got to be like it is so much rhythm goes into it, and if something falls off, the whole thing comes crumbling down. So I want to see, because Owens has made that kick a million times in his sleep, so I'd want to rewatch it and see it. How the snap went. So yeah, the game actually went pretty close to how we expected it, Brenden. We changed our game predictions midweek. We saw that the line moved from Utah, I think, was favored to win by 14 points earlier in the week. Then it moved to 7. And yeah, you picked OSU to win 17-14. I picked them to win 17-12. So that almost happened.
Yeah, it most certainly did. And honestly, I changed it because I thought Oregon State had a great game plan going in. I thought they had a good bit of practice, and I thought they'd get the win, and they put themselves in a position to, though.
Yep, they really did. And so both of us were wrong there. Our original picks were much closer if we would have stuck with those. But that's another time. So let's go through the rest of the Pac-12 games to see how we did. The first game was USC Arizona. You and I both picked USC winning big, and I am pretty sure that's what happens as I scroll through ESPN to find the scoreboard. There we go. Yeah, so Arizona, UCLA, or Arizona, USC. Yeah, USC won mightily. Sam Darnold had 5 touchdowns, 48-14. We were both you picked 31-14, I picked 35-17. So
yep,
good job for both of us.
Yep, had that one going.
Stanford, Notre Dame, both had this one wrong.
Yeah, I had the Irish.
Yeah, we both did. Both had them winning by multiple scores, but man, Notre Dame, 5 losses already.
Ouch.
Arizona State, Colorado, both picked Colorado.
That was a safe bet.
And then UCLA, Washington State. Washington State snuck out of there again.
I had the Cougs.
Yep, I think we both did.
So we both went, 4 for 1?
Yeah, Oregon State we would have gone a perfect 5 for 5 if we hadn't switched our Oregon State bets.
Oh, no, we went 4 and 2. I'm sorry, with Stanford.
Oh, yeah, never mind. Stanford, Notre Dame. But yeah, man, Washington State, that was a lot closer than expected.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think UCLA's defense is underrated a little bit, but not too shabby, though.
Yeah, Washington State had their touchdown passing streak ended, which was pretty surprising. It was something over 40 some games. All right, so not a bad week for us in our picks. We'll try to keep that rolling. Like we picked the same each week. Was the first time that's ever happened. So let's talk about Marcus McMaryion, and now that he's starting the offense. Brenden, I know you have a pretty hot take on this, and I'd love for you to share it.
I do indeed. I mean, I think Marcus McMaryion, you and I have been saying it all along. No disrespect to Daryl Garrettson, but today, in what limited I saw, I need a larger sample size, but I didn't see Marcus make a mistake today in practice. I didn't see him overthrow guys. I saw him hit guys right in stride. There was one play that was really nice where he took a fake or kept it on a read option, then threw across his body to Xavier Hawkins, and it was right on the money. One could say he looked better today than Daryl Garrison's looked throwing the ball all year. I know it's a bold statement, but I need a larger sample size, but I can say today was probably the best I've seen a quarterback at Oregon State throw in fall since I've been here in fall camp.
Yeah, he did look good. And, I mean, I've been at almost every practice, since spring ball. And I thought during the spring that Marcus was, pushing Garrison. But it was... I didn't see him overtaking Garrison. Garrison was playing well during the spring. I thought Marcus was pushing him, and I didn't think that they would go with Marcus because Garrison had been named the captain. And even early in fall, it looked like that Marcus was really really going to maybe make a move for him.
Well, and here's the thing. I completely agree with you. I think Daryl was the bet, but I have not seen the same Daryl against Minnesota against Minnesota for the rest of the year. I think he got banged up in that game. He took a lot of blindside hits in that game. I mean, more than he's taken all year. Mm-hmm. He got really hit in that game. I'm sure he's probably still having some nightmares at Tayon Devers in that game, but I just hadn't seen him the same since. I don't think he was ever really truly healthy. We don't know based on Coach Anderson's injury policy. I don't think he was ever truly healthy. And yeah, I think Marcus, this is a great opportunity for his season. Don't even get me started on the fact that Connor Blount was ahead of Marcus McMaryion. I think that was a bonehead decision. I think that directly impacted the team. I think the team didn't even hardly know who Connor Blount was. Shoot, a lot of guys were he was just number 12. Or whatever number he was, I'm sorry. I forget. I think it was 12.
It was 12.
We got a lot of guys we just know him as number 12. Compared to the guy that has been in the program for 3 years. And Artavis Pierce, I asked him today, what do you think about Marcus? What do you know him? He goes, oh, that's my boy over there. I never heard anybody this year say, oh, that's my boy when we were talking about Connor Blount. I think the team will play... I think the team was probably a little shocked that Marcus McMaryion didn't get that spot. And you even said today, Brian, it looked like it was an uncomfortable thing for Marcus to talk about Connor Blount getting that spot over Marcus McMaryion, and you were like, whoa, a little bit. So I'm happy Marcus gets his chance because I've wanted to see it for a while because I thought for a redshirt freshman, he played very well in the Civil War last year. Gave Oregon State an opportunity to win to the very end.
Yeah, no, I won't make you expand more on Connor Blount. It looks like you want a nice little rant there, so... Yeah, with the interviews today, the last question, I think it was Danny that asked, it was something along the lines of how did you handle when Connor Blount went in, and he's like, yeah, I had a weird conversation with Coach Anderson, and then he said you can ask him about that, and it was just kind of I wonder how weird of that conversation that was, and I'm sure if you ask Gary. He wouldn't even, say anything about it.
Gary's a very private person. I think Oregon State's going to get a chance to see what Marcus can do. I've wanted to see it, Brian. You told me all through fall camp you thought he looked really good, and we were absolutely baffled that Connor did not go in, or that Marcus did not go in instead of Connor. And I think now we get to see, and the crazy thing is, Brian, not to speculate, but what if Marcus comes in and leads Oregon State to 2-3 wins? Marcus pretty much said today in a roundabout way, he needs to, he's like, I got to go out and show what I can do so he can almost make it impossible for them to take it away from me. What if he does? What if Marcus goes out and wins you 2, maybe even 3 games, you go 5-7? If you're Coach Anderson, what do you do? Do you honestly bench Marcus after winning you 2-3? It's almost like a Colorado, Cepho Lufau and Steven Montez situation.
Except the opposite.
Yeah.
No Oregon State quarterback has done what Montez or
not yet.
Lufau yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, what if Marcus comes... No, this is...
So if Marcus goes out and plays well...
And plays like a Steven Montez. Throws two...
Then it's easy because there's no one who's played to Cepho Lufau's level yet.
Right. So, but that's to say, if Marcus comes in, does very well, very efficient, does things well, does he get the job?
I would say so. If I was coach, I don't know. I've been a big Marcus McMaryion fan.
I think
since the Civil War.
I think he throws the ball better than any one of those three quarterbacks when healthy. That's just my opinion. Actually, because I saw Mason Moran today. He
has a long way to go.
Yeah, if Mason Moran was playing this game against Washington might hang more than 70 on Oregon State. Just based on, it's like how Marcus was saying today. I think it was maybe not like a jab at Moran, but maybe a little kind of funny thing. He's like, when there's a defender there, don't throw it there. I mean, Mason Moran. There was a play where he threw it. Literally, it looked like he threw it at Treston Decoud, and then another play where he airmailed and it was 10 yards away from Timmy Hernandez.
Yeah,
Mason Moran reminds me almost a lot of a Brett Vanderveen, a guy that didn't play much quarterback, only got a year of quarterback playing. Was kind of a higher up recruit, dual threat guy, but Moran really can't throw that great of a spiral. He can't throw very well yet.
Yeah, he definitely has some
mechanical things.
Some mechanical. His mechanics are fine. He just needs to get stronger and just throw more.
So, but burning his red shirt, I think, would be a big mistake, and that's why we saw Seth Collins at quarterback. Even Collins looks solid, hitting a couple. I mean, even Collins' arm looked better than Oregon State's quarterback's arms the last couple weeks, Brian.
Yeah, no.
And that's saying something.
And it's really interesting because if you look back, the past year and whatnot, since dating back to the beginning of last year, who quarterbacked the best game? Who ran the offense the best? Who
till the beginning of last year?
Yeah, from the beginning of last year. When does the offense look the best?
Honestly, I will give. I'm going to give two things. I think the ball was thrown the best against Stanford last year at home. I think the offense was the best last year against Oregon. But here's why. Because the Beavers didn't do that great of a job of throwing the football against Oregon. They ran the ball really well. They didn't throw it like outstanding in my opinion. And I think Collins threw for 275 yards against Stanford, and Oregon State had a chance to win that game or at least be real close late. And that was arguably the best passing game Collins had. I think he had 275 and like 2 TDs that game. And then McMarion did a great job. I think he threw for 200 and some yards. I think he threw for 1 or 2, maybe 1 touchdown against the Ducks. Can't remember. I think it was a lot of rushing scores, though. Victor Bolden punt return, obviously. But those are my two that step out of my mind. And I think both of them were, guess who? Marcus McMarion, Seth Collins.
Yeah, I'm going to say the best game the offense looked in terms of running, throwing.
Well, Cal, it's hard to discount Cal this year, though.
Yeah, but I don't know. Cal, that was just a
team win, almost just gutty.
Yeah, that was a gutty win. It was. I mean, the
passing game was trash.
Yeah,
so
the
complete game. What do you got, Brian?
I'd say Oregon.
Yeah, and I don't think that's even up for debate.
And I don't understand why they haven't tried to replicate that. When have we seen
Seth Collins
in the red zone?
Or in that kind of slash role. I don't know why they have. You're absolutely right. I wonder if they think he's going to get hurt, but you never had Seth so far this year in the red zone, like you said, running those design quarterback draws, running those, where Marcus was out wide. They did a couple times where Darryl was out wide, but not much. And not in the red zone where Seth Collins had 3 touchdowns and Marcus had a rushing touchdown as well. And just a lot of Seth Collins in the backfield too. And they never really brought back that slash role.
Yeah.
Which was a little odd to me.
Haven't even seen any of that, and that was one of the things that we were really looking forward to this year was
back in it.
Yeah, was seeing Collins play that role where he can run, pass, and then he can also receive. We've seen him. He's had a 100-yard receiving game this year. Yep. He's made some nice catches. He's made some strides there.
I'm not saying take him away from wide receiver, but there's no reason he can't be in multiple spots. We're seeing we saw last week. The guy that he's ahead of on the depth chart, Hunter Jarman's not a slouch. You wouldn't miss much if you put Hunter Jarman out there and put Seth in the backfield. Especially this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised because Ryan Null's hurt. Ryan Null did say they're going to get a full dose of Artavis, and Ryan Null, I loved his quote today when he said Washington's going to feel a lot of Tim Cook this weekend. That was kind of a cool little quote there from Ryan Null. But I'd love to see him back, and even some 2-back sets where you do a double read option or you fake it to a running back, then you can pitch it to Seth, or Seth can throw it off the pitch. I just think not getting overcomplicated, but you got to get that playmaker in space.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've done a very good job of using him this year.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
I agree. I picked him in our Pac-12 fantasy football league in first pick because I thought, he's gonna be getting the ball so many different ways. Yep. But we haven't seen any of that, and we've seen him in the Wildcat a little bit, but it's mostly just a run. We haven't seen him. We haven't even seen him try to pass. Maybe they're saving it. Maybe they're saving for a time that really matters. But
it might be this weekend. I mean, the coaching staff's probably going to pull out all the stops to do some more. I mean, honestly, people have said themselves, the Beavers are playing with house money this weekend. You know, you're not going to win the game probably. If it was me, I'd rest Ryan Nall. I'd give Tim Cook some touches. I'd put Seth back at quarterback a few times, see what you can go with, because you look at it on the schedule, Brian, and we talked about it. If Oregon State truly wants to get to a bowl game like Gary Anderson wants to, it's not impossible, but this is not one of the games you're going to win.
Yeah, you have this game circle as like, all right, this one's, especially now that Washington's, they're really good.
Yeah.
But they did go into overtime against Arizona. Who Arizona
on the road though?
On the road.
And they've had 2 weeks to get ready for Oregon State. I think this is a game where you're throwing house money. You're letting your beat up guys get rest. I think that's why you're seeing Ryan Nall, who told me today he's not considering himself out, but yet he's doubtful. I think you're playing with house money. I think you try to nail down something selectively at quarterback. I think you're putting Seth. I think if it was me, I'd put Seth Collins in the backfield a lot more. I'd give Hunter Jarman. I'd give, someone even on. One of the subscribers on Rivals.com, Brian, just sent me a message. They go, they're playing with house money in this game. Just throw the ball to Villeman like 10 straight times and see if he can catch it. I mean, honestly, it's just like, give the ball to Villeman. Let him see what he can do. Target him multiple times and try to get him back and get him out of a, this is a game you could play around with things because you're not going to come out positive on the scoreboard.
They could.
I would bet a lot of money the other way, Brian, but
I don't know. They went into Seattle one time when they were like 38-point dogs and
largest underdog defeat ever. Yes, yeah. And they had a backup quarterback and a backup running back. But that was
it could happen. Let's shift back into.
Yeah, we can talk about Washington obviously in the second part of the podcast later this week.
Yeah. So You've said that Marcus looks the best throwing the ball. Why do you think that he got jumped by Blunt, or why the coaches decided to go to Blunt or Garrettson rather than McMarion?
You want my true theory?
Yeah, I want the.
Honestly, I think it's because from time to time Anderson gets too in love with his guys. And I think that was evident last year as well. Last year, as the year went along, we saw Seth Collins was not the best answer at quarterback. But because Anderson doesn't really have much of a control in the offense, maybe more so this year. But you saw last year Seth play quarterback for most of the year. And if he hadn't got hurt, he probably would have still continued to play because Dave Ball, when the offensive coordinator, recruited Seth. That was Seth's recruit. This last year, no other person recruited Connor Blount except for Gary Anderson. Gary Anderson was Blount's main point of contact, and Gary Anderson recruited him. I think and honestly believe Marcus McMarion was kind of thrown to the side a little bit because he was a holdover. He's one of the few holdovers offensively left from Gary Anderson's group. I mean, he's the only one at quarterback, from Mike Riley's group, and I think he was a Mike Riley quarterback, and I don't think Gary Anderson gave him a good enough look. I really don't. I think Marcus was maybe a little slower to pick up the playbook than Seth was right away. Obviously, Seth Collins beat him out last year when Marcus was a redshirt freshman. Seth was a true freshman. And, I think that was a big thing. And I think now Marcus, if I'm Marcus, you got to be thinking, when he's looking back and, staring up at the ceiling tonight when he goes to bed, Brian's probably just like, you know what? Maybe I have probably a good 2 weeks before Blount comes back to show, or maybe more. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. But I have some time to show what I can do and make them take this away from me. And if I'm Marcus, I'm like, I got to play my tail off to make sure I make it so they can't take it away from me.
That's a good point. I'll counter what you just said with, well, what about all the other Riley holdovers that are starting on offense?
Well, here's my thing. If you look at it, the only other Riley you look at a lot of the, arguably, I bet Oregon State wishes they hadn't pushed Luke Del Rio out the door with how well he's doing at Florida. That's a Riley holdover that was moved. You look at a couple other Riley holdovers that left. Nick Mitchell was a Riley holdover. So was Brett Vanderveen. He didn't end up staying with the team very long, obviously. Maybe it's medical. There's some medical retirements too. Damian Haskins and Chris Brown were Riley holdovers that didn't stay. Medical retirements, but still not there. Luke Hollingsworth was a Riley guy. So was Malik Gilmore. So was, I'm drawing a blank here. So was Cyril Nolan Lewis. So is Gabe Ovgaard. It's been a lot of guys Gary Anderson has, I wouldn't say let go, but a lot of guys have left more than usual. That's all I'm saying. I know some of them are medical, but I think a lot of people were there, and there were a lot of guys that, Gary Anderson said, you just don't fit. So, I mean, if you look at it, offensive line, yes, I'll say that for sure. And then you look at the running backs, Ryan Nall, I'm going to not count that because, Mike Riley had him as a tight end. I'm going to say that's a little different. And Gary Anderson moved him around 4 different times. And he did that with some other players, and they left because they were frustrated. Artavis Pierce, obviously, a Gary Anderson guy. Seth Collins starting over Hunter Jarman, a Gary Anderson guy. Victor Bolden there. Tibby Hernandez starting over Jordan Villeman, a Gary Anderson guy. I mean, I could go on, but there's more. There's several examples where it seems like there's Gary Anderson guys that maybe get priority. I'm not saying it's true or anything. I just say there's a couple interesting cases. That's all I'm saying.
But with the wide receivers, can you attribute that to Villeman not playing well?
Of course, of course, and I'm not saying it's true. That's just something that I think it could be completely false. I could be completely off base here, but I think it's an interesting little thing to think about. That's all. I mean, it's an interesting nugget to think about. I'm not saying I'm right. I could be wrong. I mean, there's a good chance it could be. I think there's an interesting side bit. I mean, you look at last year, Marcus was really the last to get his chance. I don't think he got a fair chance early. They kind of went with Seth a lot in the Weber State game, and then Marcus didn't get his chance again until the Civil War because Nick Mitchell was that bad and Seth Collins was hurt. So Marcus is known to be getting his chances when the odds are against him, but he usually plays pretty well. So I'm just saying I think Gary Anderson maybe looks to his guys before, some of the guys he recruits and knows and trusts right away. And no blame in it. If it was me, I probably would look at the guys that I recruited for my system too. So a lot of those guys that Gary Anderson recruited are for his system and the guys and the kids he wants. So I can understand it as well. So it's probably a double-edged sword, but it might just be an interesting dynamic. But it doesn't matter because Marcus is getting his chance now.
What does Marcus do that gives you confidence that he'll perform well?
I just think his moxie. I mean, he carries himself, not really an outspoken guy, super, kind of a quieter guy, but he kind of leads by example. You can tell that his teammates like him. I think, even a guy like, Artavis Pierce or true freshman, saying today, that's my boy. I mean, you usually don't see that from a guy that's technically a junior in school and a true freshman. They usually wouldn't, interact a whole lot, but that's kind of cool to see. And then I just think he really has the respect of his teammates because he stuck it out and he's been here and, he's been buried on the depth chart. He's kept a positive attitude from what I say. And sometimes, those guys that end up buried on the depth chart and they stay positive, good things can happen. And now he gets his chance to shine. I think he'll do a good job with it.
Yeah, I think so too. Because last year Oregon was a bad defense last year.
They still are. They're maybe worse this year.
There's no gain around that. But he went in and played solidly. He matched like Vernon Adams nearly score for score. He managed to get the team down the field. Yeah, they ran for a lot of yards, but he made some big throws in that game,
right?
Especially in the second half to move the chains. He just made the smart plays, and right now they're not getting any of that in the passing game in Oregon State. They're not getting the easy plays. They're not getting the conversion plays. They're not getting any of that.
But do you think? I mean, just out of curiosity, do you think my theory is too far? I mean, do you think there may be a little evidence to it that you think maybe they've stuck with their guys a little more than maybe they should have? Do you think that my theory is completely off base? I don't think it's completely off base that Coach Anderson and his staff has stuck with their guys maybe more so than they should have and not given other guys as good of a look. Put it this way, I don't think Marcus McMaryion was given as much of a chance as Darryl was. I just think that's just my opinion on it. And Darryl, yes, he earned the starting job. I'm not saying Darryl didn't work his butt off. He probably did. And I know he did because he worked hard in the offseason. That's why he got voted a captain. But when that happened, I just think maybe when it was a captain, it was maybe just kind of like the kind of stigma that, okay, Darryl's the guy.
Yeah. So you're asking me if Anderson's has nepotism and whatnot and like favoring his players. Do you asking if I agree with that?
I'm just saying, do you think there could be some truth that that Anderson was attached to Darryl and McGiven was because McGiven coached him at Utah State and Anderson brought him over? And I'm just saying, do you think that's possible that there's maybe a little bit of favoritism there?
Probably. I mean, McGiven knows what he can do. He knows what he's capable of. He said that last week going into the Cal game. He's like, after Darryl had like 2 back-to-back games where he didn't make it to halftime, he was like, yeah, I still have confidence in him because I've seen what he can do. I know what he can do. I've seen him go complete 80% of his passes. I've seen him throw for like 300 yards. I've seen him throw for like 3 or 4 touchdowns. Like he's seen that. So it's not like they're just like, and Garrettson's a little different case than say like a standard recruit because he came and like walked on here.
That's true. That's a fair point. I didn't think about that.
Like he wasn't.
He earned it. I'm not saying Darryl Garretson did not earn it. Absolutely. I met Darryl's just a really nice guy. Super confident in himself and in a good way. And I think he is a absolutely great team leader. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that right now I think Marcus throws the ball just a little bit better than Darryl has this year. That's all I'm saying with this. And I think maybe up until this point that wasn't noticed as much. That's all I'm saying. That's kind of what my whole thing has come down to.
No, yeah, and on that point I agree. Like I agree with that. I think Marcus might be the most like arm talented on the team. But
Darryl's kind of got that gamer,
a
little bit in him, and I'll give him the +1 on that.
And Marcus had never had a game.
That's true.
That Garrettson's had.
That's true. Very true.
And Garrettson, he didn't just come here this year. He was here all of last year as well. And so he's practiced with this team for a long time now. So I don't know if there's like favoritism towards Garretson or whatnot. Like I'm sure there is just because McGiven coached him and whatnot and like knows what he can do.
Yeah.
And I mean, McGiven even said something today. He's like, yeah, we feel fine with, like, we feel confident with Marcus because he's gone into Autzen and played well.
Thing is, it's a moot point. It is a moot point because McMarion's gonna get his chance now. Now, I will revisit this if McMarion has a couple good games and Blount comes back and they start blowing McMarion. Then I'll feel a little.
I like if McMarion has a couple good games. I don't see why Blount would get in. I really don't. That would be outrageous, and especially if Marcus doesn't win this game, fine. Like it doesn't matter who his quarterback backing Tom Brady could be there, and I think that that Husky defense I don't think like that Husky offense would be able to. Yeah, no, I don't think Oregon State's defense would stop the Huskies.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that it's crazy, but I just don't think up until this point maybe Marcus got the best chance he could have had, and I think now. Everybody usually gets an opportunity at some point. It's no different than Brian, like you said, whether Tom Brady got a chance when Drew Bledsoe went out. This is Marcus McMarion's chance to show what he has and earn that job. And I think it's a small sample size, but I've liked what he has, and he's grown a lot since he's been here. And that year he was on the scout team as a true freshman, he didn't look very good, but he's grown a lot, and I think he could be a solid player now. 3rd year in the system.
Yeah. So like next 3 games. Washington State and Stanford. Washington State's going to be a tough game.
Yep, Stanford will be tough.
Stanford, like those are
really, it's tough until you get to Arizona.
Yeah, the next 4 games you're playing some really good defensive teams.
Yeah, you are.
And then you got Arizona and Oregon to kind of end the year. So
originally you thought those games might be tough. Arizona and Oregon might be the softest part of the schedule this year. Yeah. Arizona hasn't won a conference game, and neither has Oregon.
Crazy.
So anyway,
those teams were in the Pac-12 championship like 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, that was my 2 cents. But bottom line, I'm excited to see McMarion get a chance. But obviously, I wish best of luck for Garretson to get healthy. I know he's a great team leader. He'll probably be voted captain again next year. The guys love him. I think he's a great guy. I think we still haven't seen him 100% healthy at Oregon State. I think when he is 100% healthy, he can be a dangerous weapon for the Beavs.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. We got a lot of football left.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Marcus. I like seeing like players who, despite like where they're at on the depth chart, and this is why I was, really excited to see Nick Mitchell last year, and excited like when Gabe Ovgard got in. Yeah. Is like they went for such a long time without playing, and they like worked themselves into playing time, and I mean Marcus hasn't like. I wouldn't say like worked himself into playing time per se because we don't see.
And he got beat out by Connor Blount.
Yeah, he got beat out, but let's see like what he's done these last couple of weeks, and let's see how it works out on the field.
Right.
And so that's why I'm always excited when a player gets a chance, because you don't always get a chance in college football, and so
make the most of it.
Yeah, see what he does with it.
Yep.
I wish it wasn't against Washington and on the road. You know, I wish it this is maybe against
Arizona,
Arizona, or maybe even like Washington State, like a team that's not, you know, bound for the playoffs.
Yeah, you never know. It's true.
So, yeah, we'll see. With Marcus Marion, I think we might see a good Oregon State passing game. Who knows? Maybe,
and that's why I said I'm glad. Bottom line, I'm glad he's getting his chance. I really am.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that should wrap it up. You know, quick little podcast today. So we'll have another one coming in a couple of weeks.
Couple of days. Man,
weeks.
Wow, we're taking a nice break from the podcast, Brian. Woo.
Yeah, so we'll be back at it Thursday, and then we'll be up in Seattle for the game. So that'll be exciting.
That will be.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone again listening. We'll try to get these podcasts. Well, we do have them on YouTube all the time. We'll try to get them onto iTunes. I'm trying to figure out how that works.
Cool.
So anyway, thanks everyone for continuing to listen. We'll be back at it again shortly. Bye. Insecurities I have. Won't you lay your healing hands on my chest like you're ready?